Okay, so there are 10 things that a narcissist just simply cannot do. I know you think they are all powerful, all knowing, and all seeing. They want you to think that. They want you to think that they are like the great and powerful Oz, like in the Wizard of Oz. I often say that narcissists are like the Wizard of Oz. They are like, seriously, they layer it all on like the powerful Wizard of Oz. You're going to Oz and you think they're so powerful and so knowing, and so you've got to go there, but they're really like the man behind the curtain, like so feeble and like not much going on. And you are actually the way more powerful one. You actually are. That actually is the truth. They are actually way more afraid of you than you are of them. And there really are a lot of things that they can't do. There really are a lot of things. And especially when you are negotiating with them. Hey, I'm Rebecca Zung, and I am an attorney. I am a narcissist negotiation expert. And before we go any further, I want to make sure that I tell you to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, because on this channel and in my videos, I give you tips, tricks, and resources to shift the dynamic, shift that power so that you can become the most powerful person when you are dealing with narcissists, the most toxic personality on the planet. And I upload brand new videos every single day, free content. What other lawyer is doing that? No one else. So make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. All right, so guess what? I'm going to give you 10 tips. The best one is at the end, so you're going to want to make sure you stay till the end. The best one is at the end. All right, ready? Number one, a narcissist cannot take criticism. They cannot take it. Their fragile little egos cannot take it. You know that's true. They're so easily slighted. And sometimes like you're not even criticizing them. You just like even look the wrong way. Right. And they're like slighted. I always say they hear tones in your voice, like dogs hear whistles. Like even if there's no tone, they heard tone. They cannot take criticism. All right. So that's number one. Number two, they cannot handle you being away from them. They cannot handle you ghosting them. They cannot handle you like dishing out some of your own medicine to them. Like if you start to ghost them a little bit, like you don't text them back right away, and just like they do to you, you know, a little dish of their own medicine, they cannot handle that. Just like what they've done to you, they cannot handle a little dose of their own medicine back to them, right? They go absolutely insane if you do that. I mean, you know that's true. They'll show up at your house or office. They start flooding you. They can't take that. Number three, they can't have a normal relationship. They try to, but they really can't. And that's really, really sad. You know that they're lying all the time. They lie even when they don't need to. That's the thing that I think is really very puzzling sometimes. Like they lie even when they don't have to, even about things that are easily verifiable. And even when it's to their own detriment, a lot of times they're just incapable of it because they're just not healthy people. Unfortunately, they have no sense of self. As much as they try, they can't be in a normal, healthy relationship. And number four, they can't be vulnerable because they can't be in a normal, healthy relationship. Something happened to them when they were younger, when they were in those formative years that made them think that the world was a very scary place. And so they're constantly in a state of survival. It's almost like they do show that vulnerability, that they feel like they'll be eaten in a way. It's like for them to survive, they have to be in this fight or flight mode at all times. It's very sad. And so hand in hand with that is number 5, which is they really can't show genuine emotion. They don't have that ability to have any feeling of care or empathy for other people, because it's almost like for them to eat, nobody else can eat. And so they're like vultures sort of picking the carcass of other, like, is there food still left in this carcass? I always liken it to, like, if I'm starving, I can't think about whether or not somebody else needs food right now because I'm so starving all the time. And so that's what's really going on. And that's why they can't really show genuine emotion about anybody else. And that's why they really can't allow themselves to have that genuine emotion and allow themselves to be vulnerable and allow themselves to have that normal, healthy relationship. That's what's really going on. It's just this underlying thing. And so when you're going to negotiate with them, it's even worse because you've become public enemy number 1. And when you're dealing with them in a negotiation setting, it's you are now for them or against them. And when you're against them, you're public enemy number 1. And you have to remember that when you're dealing with them in a negotiation setting. And that's where I come in and help you understand that when you're dealing with them in a conversational situation, when you're trying to have those hard conversations, when you're trying to have those conversations in a toxic situation. You're definitely going to want to check out my video on the 12 things that narcissists don't do, because that goes hand in hand with this video as well. It really is very sad. It's very sad. And if you agree with me, just put very sad in the comments, because it's too bad for them that they can't feel that. But by the way, you can't fix that. So don't think that you can. Don't think that you can fix that. All right. So number six goes hand in hand with some of the other things that I've been saying, and that is that they can't be authentic because they can't have that normal, healthy relationship. So they can't show that genuine emotion. So they can't be authentic as well. Don't think that you're going to be able to fix them. Don't think that you're going to be able to have them show that genuine emotion. And don't think that you're going to be able to have them admit their vulnerabilities or things like that. Okay. Number seven is a narcissist cannot give credit to others. They cannot acknowledge others for things that they've done. They cannot give credit to others because it gives away from that sense of self, which they don't have. When they don't have any sense of self, they cannot give credit to others. That's why they do the withhold. They cannot give anything. It's almost like when you're starving, you cannot give away anything. And believe me, I know when I was dealing with this, when in a business situation, I mean, even if you give, like no matter how much you give, they cannot give any credit for no matter what it is that you've done. They will not acknowledge you for that. Number eight is they will never admit that they were wrong. No matter what, they will never admit that they were wrong. They will never apologize. I mean, unless they have to for strategic reasons or something like that, but they will never actually apologize and actually mean it. All right. Number 9, they will never genuinely be happy for other people's successes. I mean, they cannot bring themselves. They're so jealous. Again, it goes back to that very, very fragile sense of self. When you don't have that inner sense of value, you can't be happy for others. It's so sad, but it's just so true. I mean, when you feel good about yourself, you can feel good about other people. But if you don't feel good inside, you don't feel good about other people, unfortunately. And number 10, I told you I was going to save the best for last. This is like the paradox. This is the irony of narcissists. This is the one I find so mind-blowing about them. And that is that they cannot handle being alone. They're so horrible to you, and yet they don't want you to leave. They cannot handle you leaving them. They don't want to be alone, but yet they were so awful to you. Yep, so true. They cannot handle being alone, but yet they're so terrible to you, but you can't be responsible for them. You can't fix it. You can't save it. The 3 C's, you didn't cause it. You can't control it. You can't cure it. So let's talk about the 12 things that narcissists just never do, because they are very, very insecure, like to the max. They have no inner sense of value. They have to suck it all from the whole world in the form of narcissistic supply. And so there's just certain things that they just, because they're just so scared inside, that they're just simply not going to do. It makes them feel like they're losing whatever little sense of self that they absolutely have. And so they feel like they need to protect it. They live in a world of scarcity and survival, almost as if they're like out in the wilderness or something. I mean, they don't think about it that way, but that's how they are. I mean, the big secret is that you are actually the more powerful one. You're actually the one that has the value. They attach themselves to you because you have so much value. If you didn't, they wouldn't think that you're a good source of supply. That's the big, huge gaslight that they do on you. They make you think you're the one that's devalued, and it's really the opposite, right? So let's talk about the 12 things that they don't do. Number one is they do not show their true selves. They can't do that. There's just no way for them. You know, they really live in this world of like, there's this little inner self, and then there's like the self that they show people. It's a very much a dichotomy. I always think of that Billy Joel song, The Stranger, where he's like, you know, we all have a self that we hide away, but they really do. It's like no one ever sees. So that's number one. They don't show their true selves. Number two is that they just don't have any security in their relationship. So they don't trust whoever it is that they're with, because they can't show their true self. So there's really no security in any of their relationships at all. They don't trust anyone. They really can't have like true connection, which is sad, but it's not your responsibility. So number three, they don't want to be seen as the bad guy. So they'll do whatever they need to take everybody else down first. And that's why when you see the demise of the relationship, when it starts to go downhill, you start to see the birth of the smear campaign, because they want to make sure they're going to get you before you get them. With narcissists, things are very black and white. You're either for them or against them. Things are fantastic or they're horrible. A person is amazing or they're worthless. And so once you have shown your cards that you're no longer for them, then in their minds, you're against them and you have become public enemy number one. And, you know, the slightest little slight is grounds for war sometimes. So that's number three. They'll just never allow themselves to be portrayed as the bad person. So number four is they don't want to lose control. They'll do whatever they need to maintain control over the situation, even lie, manipulate, cheat, steal, take other people down, burn things on their way out. It doesn't really matter, but they'll do whatever they need to try to maintain control of a situation. I had a mediation one time where the guy came in and he was like demanding that he get the dog back from their adult daughter before he would even start mediating. And it was like his way of establishing that I'm in control of this situation, that I'm running this mediation. Because, you know, what were we going to do with the dog? Make him sit in the car, have him be in the office? I mean, it was a completely ludicrous demand, but it was to establish that he was the one in control. The next one is they certainly do not say sorry unless they need to. They will use apologies in a certain way to try to manipulate, to try to get what they want. Some never say sorry at all. They just can't bring themselves to do that. But If you want to know more about what a narcissist means when they're apologizing, when they're saying sorry, and how they're using that, make sure you check out my video on that topic. I have a whole video on that. All right. So the next one is they don't allow people to prove them wrong. I mean, even if you show them proof, you've got a text message, you've got an email, you said this, or this happened, or this was, they'll somehow figure out a way to like wrangle it around so that they're not wrong. Maybe find some shred of something to spin so that they're not wrong. The next one is they don't see others as equals. I mean, they always have to be looking down if possible. They're just not going to see others as equal. That's part of building themselves up so that they can feel more powerful than other people. The next one is they don't have sympathy. They just can't feel what you're feeling. It's just, I kind of liken it to having like a really horrible toothache. When you have a terrible toothache, all you can feel is like your own pain. And you kind of know other things are going on out there, but it doesn't really register. And that's because that's what's going on with them. They're only, for themselves. They're extremely broken, hurt people. And so they just can't have sympathy or empathy for other people. The next thing is that they don't do anything that doesn't benefit them. So there's got to be some reason that they're going to do something for someone. What am I getting out of this situation? They're not going to just do something just to do something. I mean, that whole anonymous donor thing or altruistic tendencies, whatever, they don't have that. That doesn't even like register on their Richter scale. So they definitely don't do anything that doesn't benefit them. And if you think I'm so spot on so far, give me a spot on in the comments. All right. So the next one is that they do not listen. I mean, they just hear the words coming out of your mouth, but it's not registering to them as far as like taking it in, hearing what you're saying, being able to provide feedback, being able to have that empathetic listening, all that sort of thing. They can't do it. It's not possible. They don't listen. The next one is they don't really give compliments. Now, they will if they think that it's going to benefit them in some way, oh, you're doing great or whatever. But maybe they're saying these things because they want this person to work harder, to be their friend, to, whatever it is. I mean, there's always some manipulation to it. And then once you are in their little web of control, then it becomes like backhanded compliments, like, oh, you're doing pretty good for someone who sucked at this, or, you're losing some weight for somebody who's, obese or whatever. I mean, like they'll just kind of weave in the compliment with also a backhanded diss at you. So that's the next one. So charming, right? Okay. The next one is they won't let anyone look better than them. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying before about taking you down before you take them down. And so that's actually the key, by the way, to negotiating with them. You have to understand that more than anything, they want to make sure they look better, that their image is preserved, that they don't get exposed. And so when you are creating your leverage in your negotiations, that's the thing that you need to think about. A lot of people think that it's money that motivates them. Money can be a factor, but more than anything, image is the thing that you're going to want to be thinking about when you're creating your negotiation strategy. All right, let's talk about the 10 things that narcissists do to appear smarter than they actually are. And by the way, I did a whole video on whether narcissists are actually smarter than other people or if they're just like super skilled. And you might want to check that out as well. But all right, so just let's talk about narcissists here for a second. They want to build up situations so that they look like they have a higher IQ than everybody else because they want to appear better than everyone else, because that's part of being a narcissist. They want to, degrade and devalue people so that they can look better. and they get a form of narcissistic supply by looking smarter. So remember that supply is anything that feeds their ego, and it can be adulation, respect, compliments, things like that. But it can also be, doing things that aren't so nice to people to try to, bolster themselves. And remember that they're not attaching themselves to you because you have so little value. They attach themselves to you because you have so much value. And by taking somebody that they think has so much value and then like degrading them, it's actually makes them feel better, right? So they are always looking for ways to look smarter than they actually are. And so let's go through them. So number one is projection. If you call them a narcissist, and that's what you become, whatever is being put onto them, like because they didn't take responsibility for something that they should have. I mean, I used to have a paralegal who was a narcissist, and every time she screwed up, it was somebody else's fault or something else's fault. Mistakes are always somebody else's responsibility. So they project and deflect. That's one of the things that they love to do. So that's number one. That's, because obviously if they project and deflect, then, they don't look so bad, right? So that's number one. Number two is degrading other people. What better way to feel taller than step on somebody else? At least according to a narcissist. So, somehow in their mind, if they're using, you as a footstool, then they seem to feel like they look better and they look smarter because they're degrading you, devaluing you, diminishing you, or others. It could be others. It doesn't necessarily have to be you, but that's another way that they try to make themselves look smarter. Number three is they exaggerate or inflate their own importance. This is where they're bragging, they're boasting, they are maybe exaggerating things. They're saying things that are just, maybe not even necessarily an exaggeration. But, if they won by a nose, a contest, and they say they won by a landslide. If they lost and the other person, just shook their hand, they will say the other person was a sore loser, or that they ran off with their tail between their legs, things like that. So they'll inflate their importance. They'll exaggerate their and anything that they accomplished. They'll make it look like it was way better than it actually was, and they'll tell everybody about it. This is more of your garden variety overt narcissist, not so much the covert. Covert narcissists don't do it in exactly that way. And just remember, the whole point of this is to try to make themselves appear smarter, but also make other people look bad a lot of times. Okay. Number four is judging other people, and especially judging other people to third parties, like they're flying monkeys. And remember, their flying monkeys are those people that they're trying to line up on their side so that they look so great and the other people look terrible. They want, it's sort of a bullying mentality, like, we're all standing together here, and they'll lie to the third parties as well, but judging other people. And a lot of times these people are constantly judging people. Like, they'll just be watching TV and going, oh, that person's so fat, this person's ugly, oh, the way this person speaks is so stupid. They're constantly judging, right? And it's just like a way of being for them. Number five is lie. You know that they're pathological liars, right? They lie about themselves. They lie about their accomplishments. They lie about other people. They lie about things that they don't even need to lie about, but that's what they do. They lie to make themselves look smarter. And if you want to know more about that, you can definitely check out my video on what happens when you catch a narcissist in a lie. But they lie about pretty much everything. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but they can definitely lie to make themselves look smarter as well. The next thing is manipulate. They'll manipulate situations. They'll manipulate correspondence. They manipulate conversations. I've seen them manipulate bank statements. I've seen them manipulate discovery. I've seen them manipulate text messages where certain text messages end up coming out. They will break into people's emails sometimes and manipulate things. They want other people to look bad and them to look good. I mean, and they want to kind of beat you to the punch, especially if they think that you are against them in some way. And if you're negotiating against them, then they're going to think that you're against them. And remember, they live in this scarcity mentality. So like if you have something, then they can't have it. And then their world kind of caves in. So they'll do whatever they need to. And they fight dirty. Narcissists fight dirty. So there's really no bar that it's too low for them. Unless they're afraid that they're going to get caught or there'll be bad consequences where they're going to look bad. But other than that, there's really no bar under which they won't go. So number 7 is they demand special treatment. They demand certain behavior from people. They demand the best table in the restaurant. They demand the nicest office. They demand coffee be brought to them or whatever it is. They want people to do things for them. And that in their world makes it look like they're smarter or better than anyone else. And if you've seen any of these things so far, give me a hell yeah in the comments. Okay, number 8. Number 8 is that they distort reality. They distort what's actually happening, magical thinking. That's part of being a narcissist. Sometimes I wonder if they even believe their own lies. I don't know. I think it could possibly be. Or they tell themselves so much that they've just completely believed it. It's like the old George Costanza thing in Seinfeld. It's not a lie if you believe it. But they distort reality. And sometimes it works to their favor. I mean, I've heard like Steve Jobs used to like force people to do things and accomplish things that nobody ever thought could possibly be done. And so sometimes, I actually did a whole video on is being a narcissist a good thing? I think it can work to a certain extent, but then it can definitely be their undoing as well. And number 9 is they say things with certainty. They absolutely say things. My father used to say, whatever you say it with authority and people will believe you, right? And I've heard Tony Robbins say, who wins an argument? The one who says things with the most certainty, right? And they're very good at that. And they use motions like this, hand gestures that make them look like they really know what they're talking about. And I've seen this with narcissistic opposing counsel. They'll bring up arguments and say things that are completely preposterous, but they say it with complete certainty in such a way that the judge actually goes along with them, So they say things with certainty and that makes them appear smarter than they actually are. And number 10 is attacking others. They'll attack you. They'll attack coworkers. They'll attack people that work for them. They will attack people for no reason whatsoever, just to make themselves look smarter. They will attack people for having a different view. They'll try to get people to sort of spar with them. I knew somebody that like, as soon as they got somebody like riled up, that they were like, oh, all right, good. Now we're having a conversation, like to that person that was like communicating when you're upsetting somebody, because, that person would get supply from that. And sometimes they attack people just for being weak, just because they can, because like they know if they attack this person that they're not going to do anything about it. And that's going to, to them, it makes them appear smarter. So those are the 10 things that narcissists do to appear smarter than they actually are. They want to feed their ego. They'll do whatever they need to feed their ego. They are supply whores. And, if they have to do these kinds of things and step on people to make themselves look smarter, then, well, by all means, why not? So let's talk about narcissists and their weaknesses. They seem untouchable. I mean, I cannot tell you how many people I have spoken to, thousands of people from all over the world who have said to me, I can't win. I'll never win. They always win. They always get their way. They always get away with everything. I will never be able to get the leg up. That is not true. I've heard people who said, don't bother negotiating with them. You can never get what you want. Again, not true. I know the secret, and I tell you exactly how to do that right here in these videos, in my materials, in the free stuff that I give away, in my free webinars, and in my programs. So that's what I'm here to help you do. That's my purpose on this planet. I am on a mission. I'm on a personal crusade to help you guys get what you want, get out of these relationships so that, you know, life will be better. And once you conquer that narcissist, once you get what it is that you want, you will see that it will actually change your life in every single way. You will start being more powerful in every single aspect of your life once you do this. This is going to be the hardest thing you ever do, and also the most fulfilling thing you ever do in a lot of ways. So narcissists do have weaknesses, and they go to great lengths to try to hide those weaknesses from you. They don't want you to know that they have any weaknesses. They want you to think that they're all powerful, all invincible. I often think of the Wizard of Oz and how, you know, the wizard had built this huge thing, Emerald City. You know, there's this yellow brick road, this golden pathway to get to this place where he was living. And they all come in and they see this massive, huge head, and I am the great and powerful Oz. And they're all like cowering. And I'm sure at that point, they're all thinking, oh my gosh, there's no way we could ever win. But here's the not so secret secret. The narcissist is actually more scared than you are. You are the more powerful one. And I have said many times, and it's worth repeating again, that the narcissist does not attach themselves to you because you have so little value, even though they devalue you. They attach themselves to you because you have so much value. And they don't want you to know that they're actually the weaker one. They want you to believe that they are. It's the great caper. It's the massive, huge heist thing that they're pulling off and fooling the world. But you are actually the stronger one. You are actually the more valuable one. And they, by the way, they get supply from devaluing someone that they think has so much value. Because now, look at this, look at me, I'm being more powerful, and I'm actually getting this person who has so much value to squirm. I'm intimidating them. That makes me so much more powerful. That's what they think anyway. So one of their biggest weaknesses is fear. They have fear of everything. Fear of being exposed, fear of losing their supply, fear of looking bad to people that they especially respect. And so therefore, when you are creating leverage in negotiating with them, that's one of the biggest ways that you can, you know, potentially get them to do what you want them to do, is by threatening this source of narcissistic supply that's going to be more important for them to keep than the supply that they get from intimidating you and making your life miserable. So fear is one of their biggest weaknesses and one of the biggest ways that you could potentially expose them. And if you want to know more about this, check out my video on Narcissist Achilles heel, because I go into way more detail in that video as well on what narcissists' biggest fears are. And the second biggest weakness that narcissists have is around decision making. They actually are very bad at making decisions. They take a long time sometimes because they're not sure, they're weighing where they're going to get more narcissistic supply, or if it's going to threaten a source of narcissistic supply, or maybe they'll lose a source of narcissistic supply. They want to keep all of it if they can. I mean, they could hoard it if they can. If supply were a physical thing, they'd actually be hoarders. It would be like stuff in their house. It'd be a fantastic episode of Hoarders, because they really want to suck as much supply as they can from every single resource as they can. It's like an endless black hole that needs to be fed, and it never gets satiated. So making decisions is another one of a narcissist's biggest weaknesses. All right, and the next thing is asking for things. They don't want to have to ask for anything. They feel very weak if they have to ask for something. And so they feel that to get anything on this planet, they have to manipulate it. They can't just ask for it. And if you want to know more about the narcissist manipulation tactics, check out my video on the narcissist's favorite manipulation tactics. Unfortunately, they just can't ever ask for something like a normal person. They feel like everything they do has to be lied about, manipulated about, and, hopefully they'll get it that way. I mean, it's because of their scarcity mentality. They have this huge scarcity mentality that, I can't share anything, and I have everything I get, I have to beg, borrow, and steal for, and I can't share, I can't give, because I have to, contain it all for myself. And so they just have started, early on in life with everything has to be manipulated. You can't just ask for something. So that's another one of the huge weaknesses that narcissists have. So if you are so ready to expose that narcissist in your life, give me an expose them in the comments right now below. The next biggest weakness for a narcissist is listening. So, I mean, I've had narcissists, they will actually ask me a question, and while I'm responding to their own question, they're already not listening, they're already off. It's sort of a way of devaluing. But even if it would serve them to listen, even if it would serve them to show engagement or act like they care, sometimes they just can't do it. They're like incapable, which leads me to the next one, which is one of their weaknesses, is that they lack empathy. And that's actually, while sometimes they think it's a strength, it's actually a weakness, because they can't ever connect with people. They can never actually demonstrate value to people because they don't want to have to give up on anything. So they actually become their own worst enemies so often, especially in negotiating, because they often are cutting their own nose off to spite their face. So, listening or showing empathy or anything like that sometimes could actually be very, very useful in negotiating and helping to develop a rapport with people and demonstrating that you care and that you're listening to what it is that their concerns are, so that they may be more likely to give you something in a negotiation. And they just can't do it. They just are, sometimes they lack the ability to do it completely unless somebody has said, hey, you should probably do this. And so I've had situations where one time I was representing a guy who was looking at facing permanent alimony and lots of money every single month to pay his wife. And all she wanted in order to waive alimony was an apology from him. And he didn't even want to do it. Like, I had to basically make him do it. And it's because, he just felt like he was giving a part of himself. Somehow he would be less if he had to apologize in some way. And so, and if you want to know more, by the way, about what's going on when a narcissist apologizes, check out my video on that topic. But, they just can't listen or show empathy even when it would serve them. So therefore, that's a huge weakness. And the last one are just that they're so insanely insecure. I mean, and that really ends up making them do all kinds of things. You know, they distort reality, this magical thinking, no boundaries, all the different kinds of things that they end up engaging in. If they really are their own worst enemies in a lot of ways, and it's hard to envision that when you're dealing with them, when it feels so powerful. But the truth of the matter is that you can expose them, you can pull back that curtain just like they did with the Wizard of Oz, and you'll see that there's this feeble little soul that's sitting inside there that's super scared. And there are ways to create strategy around dealing with them so that you can get what you want in the negotiation. So let's talk about that one thing that the narcissist never wants you to know. Okay, so think about it. They live their lives. Almost everything they do is a lie, right? I mean, they were born and they were fine. And from what I understand, it's definitely a nurture thing, not a nature. I mean, so yes, not a nature thing, a nurture thing. And that means that something happened to them when they were children that caused them to be injured in some way. And they started to see the world as a very scary place, and their scarcity mentality to the absolute extreme. They feel like it's like dog eat dog, like I have to survive. And the only way I can survive is by lying and manipulating and getting things like, and that's why they end up lying about stuff that they don't even need to lie about, and manipulating things when they don't even need to be manipulating. But it's just because that's their way of being. That's how they were born. And so they were traumatized. They felt like they needed to survive. And so they have this like this little inner self that's super fragile, that has no sense of self-worth. And they just layer on everything on the outside world to make you think, or make the whole world think, that they're this persona when they're actually this persona. And they're almost like two different versions of themselves. People who are fully self-present, fully self-aware, fully feeling whole and complete don't feel like they're different people when they are between, being at home, watching TV, having dinner with their family, or whatever it is that they're doing behind closed doors, versus the person that is shown to the world, that goes out, that works in the workplace, that talks to people. With narcissists, it's almost two different personas as to what they show. And even there's another even layer, even beyond what's at home, which is what they never want anyone to know, which is that deep thing that's going on inside of them. So I mean, there's a lot of secrets that they have, and there are a lot of things that they don't want you to know. I mean, what they want you to think is that they're better than everyone else, that they're smarter than everyone else, that they're a winner. And that's why they act the way they do. That's why they put people down all the time. That's why they're super jealous. They act very, very entitled. They use people. But all of that is because that's how they feel like they have to show up and be in the world. And so to maintain the facade of that they're better than everyone else and smarter than everyone else and have more money or have a nicer house or whatever it is that they're trying to project out into the world, they'll do whatever they can to protect that. And especially things that, how they look in the world. And that's why when you're negotiating with them, you have to be very, very aware that this is what's happening with them, because they will protect that at any cost. At the very least, put people down and, engage in control tactics, and, they're jealous and they have no boundaries and all that. But, when it comes to negotiating, you're either for them or against them. And if you're going to be against them, then you're going to be public enemy number one. And they have to see things in black and white. That's what's going on during the negotiations. They're constantly trying to test people a lot of times too. And if you want to know more about that, you should definitely check out my video on how narcissists test victims. And if you have seen this and you know that I'm right so far, give me a for sure in the comments. All right. So you ready for the big, big secret, the one that they definitely do not want you to know? And that is that little self that they have, that little fragile thing that lives inside of them is extremely afraid. They are super fear-based people, and they are afraid of everything. They're afraid of being exposed, number one, more than anything. They're afraid that you're going to leave them. That's also a paradox because they treat you like terrible and then they don't want you to leave them, or they're actually extremely codependent. One of their biggest fears one of their biggest fears is of abandonment, actually. And so the big, big secret is that they are actually more afraid of you than you are of them. They're super afraid of being exposed for the fraud that they are. And they'll go to any lengths to protect that. And so when you're going to negotiate with them, that's what you have to remember. You have to keep all of these things in mind because you're going to have to kind of keep their ego in check to a certain extent, but then also make them feel like they are potentially going to be exposed, that something might be happening to them. And so when you're building your strategy and you're building your leverage, it's really important to understand and anticipate what it is that they're going to do, what's motivating them, how are they going to behave during the negotiations, because then you can build a strategy and leverage such that you'll be able to motivate them and incentivize them into wanting to have a conversation with you. Don't think they're going to change. Don't think that you're going to be able to get them to see the error of their ways and, oh my gosh, I can't believe how I treated you or how this happened or whatever, because they're not going to do that. And the reason why they have a hard time apologizing or they have a hard time admitting that they're wrong or that they're responsible or giving anybody credit for anything is because they have such a fragile sense of self. It's almost like if I do that, then I will crumble, then there won't be enough for me. You know, they're almost like glass or something that's been very carefully meticulously protected, and they don't want to be exposed. So that's really the biggest secret of all. And that is that you are actually the stronger one. They are way more afraid of you than you are of them. And there are a lot of ways that you can build a strategy and leverage around that so that you can walk away with getting what you want and they also feel intact. More than anything, you need to feel valued, honored, and respected, and setting yourself up so that no one and nothing can ever infringe on that. All right, let's talk about the 5 things that narcissists worry about. And you're going to want to watch all the way till the end because I'm saving the best for last, of course. Number 1, the first thing that narcissists worry about is they worry about being forgotten. Narcissists really do not want to be forgotten because, of course, they want to feel super special. That's one of the things that is really, really important to narcissists. It's actually one of the things that is highlighted in the spectrum of narcissistic personality disorder. If you look at the DSM-5, which is how psychologists and psychiatrists actually look to see if somebody has narcissistic personality disorder, they want to feel like they're special. So being forgotten is one of the most things that they worry about. Is one of the worst things that could possibly happen to them. They need to be the center of attention, and they fear that if they're not, it means that they kind of disappear because they have no internal sense of value. They get all of their sense of value from external sources. So that's why they're constantly doing things to try to be the center of attention. If they're an overt narcissist, they do things to be boastful, they brag a lot, they overtly try to be the center of attention. If they're more of a covert narcissist, they act like the victim, they try to do things that make you feel guilty, that sort of thing. But either way, they're always trying to be the center of attention, even if it makes themselves look bad. Being forgotten is absolutely one of the top things that they worry about. Number 2 is losing control. They absolutely hate losing control. They must be in control of everything at all times. And how they go about that is, they do that in different ways, depending on whether they're an overt narcissist or a covert narcissist. They definitely want to be in control at all times. This is why they are manipulative. This is why, sometimes they're passive aggressive. Sometimes they use gaslighting. They have all these different ways of trying to be in control at all times. They have their little kingdoms or queendoms, depending on what type of, if they're male or female or whatever. But this need for control is constant. And this is why they're constantly on this hunt for narcissistic supply. Worrying about losing control is something that keeps them up at night, quite frankly. And they're super insecure. So, they have trust issues, all of these things. So obviously, losing control is a big, big problem for them. Number 3 is being rejected. They absolutely are very, very concerned about whether or not somebody is, for them or against them. And, for them, everything is black and white. So you are either for them or you're against them. And being slighted is, even if there's a hint of it, a tone of it. I always say that narcissists hear tones like dogs hear whistles. Even if there's no tone, they hear tone. I mean, they're highly, highly sensitive to being rejected. It really comes down to the fact that, they're operating on an immature, emotionally limbic brain, frankly. And so they need to be loved and accepted by everybody, and really sensitive to the fact that they're not, even if they say, I don't care if these people like me. I mean, they'll say that. They say that all the time. But the fact of the matter is that they very much do. And they'll say, I feel whole. I feel complete. I don't care if anybody loves me. But they are extremely, extremely sensitive to this. And this fear of being rejected leads them to being actually very clingy and needy in relationships. Even if they're rejecting you, they'll reject you, but then pull you back, reject you, then pull you back. It's a very hot and cold type of relationship, but that is how they are. They're extremely nervous about being rejected. That is the next one. The next one is they're extremely worried about being alone. They hate being alone. They need people around because that's where they get their narcissistic supply. They get supply from people. So they need people to be giving them that supply. That's where they get the feeding of their ego, is from those sources. So they need that. It's either going to be in the form of what I call diamond level supply, which is adulation or people giving them that prestige, that sort of thing, or what I call coal level supply, which is controlling people, debasing people, treating people poorly, that sort of thing. But they need to be surrounded by people at all times. And this fear of being alone can lead them to being very codependent on people. And when people try to leave them, they go crazy, stalking sometimes, trying to make you feel guilty. I mean, even after they've treated you so poorly, they go crazy if you try to leave them. It's so crazy, but that's what happens. I mean, they hate being alone. So that's one of their major fears, one of their major worries as well. So that's number 4. And if you've seen any of these so far, give me a totally in the comments, right? Totally, you've seen this. I know you have. Now I have led myself up to number 5, which is the big one, the most important one. Absolutely. And when you are negotiating with a narcissist, trying to get something out of them, trying to create leverage, this is the biggie. This is the most important one. This is the one when you are developing any kind of a strategy, which is all part of my SLAY methodology, by the way. Strategy, leverage, anticipate, focus on you. This is where you're going to build your leverage. Number 5 is they worry about being exposed. This is the most important one, the thing they worry about the absolute most. They are very worried about being exposed. They don't want anyone to see their true selves. They don't want to be exposed to anyone, including their partners. They don't want to even show their true selves to their spouses, to anyone, because they don't want anyone, they don't trust anyone, they don't want anyone to know who they are. This fear of exposure leads them to live lives of lies and deception and manipulation. And, they'll tell everyone else, you're not trustworthy and you're a liar. They call everybody else these names. But the truth of the matter is, it's they themselves that are not trustworthy. It's they themselves who are the liars. It's they themselves who are projecting and deflecting, who are doing all of the things that they are accusing other people of because they are afraid, deathly afraid of being exposed. And so this is the area that you can actually build leverage around. 4 issues that drive narcissists crazy. 4 issues that drive narcissists crazy. You want to know what they are? I'm going to tell you right now. And at the end, I'm going to give you one that really drives them crazy because I teach you how to negotiate with narcissists powerfully. I have been everywhere with narcissists, up, down, all around. I've seen them punch walls. I've seen them do all kinds of crazy things. And I know how to tame them. I know how to get what you want from them. So here's number 1. Number 1 is criticism. Criticism. They cannot handle criticism in any way, shape, or form. Even if you're not even criticizing them, even if you're just like referring to something, you're just stating like a fact. Well, this happened. They think that's criticism. Like, oh, well, we took a walk on the beach and it was raining that day and we didn't have coats on. That's a criticism. Okay, well, I was just referring to the fact that we didn't have coats on. Oh, that's a criticism. They like any little thing that they perceive as something slight, you're talking in this tone, you're yelling at me, you interrupted, whatever, like any little thing. They cannot handle any slight, any tone, even if it's constructive, even if it's like whatever. They see it as a personal attack and they will react accordingly. They're extremely defensive. And it just makes it almost impossible to have a healthy relationship with them. You cannot have a healthy dialogue with them because they're constantly on the defensive. They're constantly aggressive. They look at you as the one who has the problem. They look at you as the one who has the anger issues or the one who's delusional or the one who's being offensive. It just makes it absolutely impossible to have a conversation or interact with them in any positive or normal way. And they need to feel perfect at all times. They have to be above reproach at all times. Oftentimes, it triggers rage. They're extremely insecure. It just makes it extremely difficult to interact with them because they're just so easily slighted, so easily slighted. They so often cause their own unhappiness because they think that they're being criticized or they think that they're being perceived in a certain way, and then they react in that way. And a lot of times it's not even what they think, but they go about life in that way. And it's very sad, but it is what it is. So number one is criticism. Number two is failure. They cannot handle failure. They certainly see failure as a reflection of their worthiness as a human being. That equals whether or not they should be existing on the planet, unfortunately. And a lot of us feel that way. So, we should never equate our accomplishments with our worthiness as humans on the planet, because we are worthy, we matter as humans because we are humans. We were born. Because you were born, you are amazing, you are incredible, you were meant to be here. It was like a 1 in 300 trillion chance that you were born, and you are special, you are unique. Accomplishments as a human being have nothing to do with, whether or not you are valuable. But narcissists, they have no inner sense of value. They have no feeling of inner sense of value. And so it's all a reflection of their worthlessness. And they go to great lengths to avoid how they look, so they want to look like they're successful at all times and perfect at all times. So they certainly cannot look like they're a failure in any way. And many times it's what's so crazy is that they engage in dangerous or risky behavior, which causes them to fail and fail badly. Then it definitely makes them look bad, of course, but then they're unable to accept that they failed. And then they, of course, blame it on everybody else, right? It's everybody else's problem. It's everybody else's responsibility. Deflect, and project, lie, deny, make it everybody else's fault. They see everybody else's inadequacies as the problem, as why they failed. And it causes them to lash out at others and oftentimes engage in self-destructive behaviors, unfortunately. So failure is number two. If you guys have seen any of this so far, give me a totally in the comments. Just put totally in the comments if you've seen any of this so far. The next one that they cannot handle is rejection or being ignored in any way, shape, or form, which is the crazy thing because, of course, they do this all the time. They reject, they ignore, they ghost you, they engage in this sort of behavior in order to control, but they certainly can't handle when it happens to them. And, they expect immediate responses. They expect immediate behavior, where they get paid attention to, but then they certainly don't want you to ignore them. They have to be the center of attention. They become sullen, they become angry, they become difficult, they become punishing and demanding and needy and all of these things. They need this constant attention in order to validate themselves, in order to feel good about themselves. If they don't get that attention that they feel that they demand, that they require, that they deserve, then they can, it causes them a great deal of anxiety. It causes them a great deal of distress. And it can also be something that can cause that narcissistic rage to come flying out because that narcissistic injury can become triggered. And so, who knows, depending on the type of narcissist that you're dealing with, it can cause that rage to come flying out in a number of different ways. So they can go crazy, and start stalking and who knows, threats, that sort of thing, if they're not getting the attention that they feel that they deserve. So that's the next one, which leads us to number 4. Number 4, the last one, which I told you is the king of all kings or queen of all queens. The one thing that drives them absolutely crazy, which of course is how you're going to end up building your leverage when it comes to negotiating with narcissists, because it is the issue that drives them the most crazy. And that is potentially exposing them to people that they respect, their highest level of supply, the people that they don't want to look bad in front of. So who is that? When you are going to build your strategy, which is the S in my SLAY methodology: strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focusing on you, then you need to think about what is that highest level of supply source for them. What is that diamond level supply? Who do they not want to be exposed to? Because that is the one thing that they're going to protect and defend at any cost. That is really what's going to trigger those feelings of insecurity, those feelings of rage, if they think that you are potentially going to expose them to those people. So who is that for that narcissist in your life? It could be, if you're going to court, it could be the judge, it could be the attorneys in the system, it could be the mediator, but it could be coworkers, it could be people, employees, it could be people that they work for, it could be neighbors, it could be friends, it could be their new form of supply, a new girlfriend, a new boyfriend, it could be anybody like that. So think about that being exposed. That's number 1. And narcissists are weird that way. There's certain things that only narcissists do. That's how it is with narcissists. Okay, so now we are going to be talking about 21 gaslighting phrases and 10 gaslighting techniques. This is a favorite of all kinds of narcissists. Whether you are dealing with a covert narcissist, a grandiose narcissist, or a malignant narcissist, all narcissists use gaslighting techniques. What is gaslighting? First of all, let's define gaslighting before we even get into this. Gaslighting is when narcissists are trying to make you think that you're crazy. I think that it's easiest to actually talk about where the term gaslight even came from, because I think that makes it kind of easiest to figure out. And it actually came from an old play, which it was also a movie, where the husband was trying to make the wife think that she was crazy. And what he would do, he would blow out these gas lights, and the wife would say, "Wasn't that just lit?" And he would say, "No, it wasn't." She would say, "I'm pretty sure that was just lit." And he would say, "No." And that's how he would actually make her question her own mind. And that's what gaslighting is. That's where the term came from. It's to make you question your own mind. So it's basically things that you think you're seeing or things that you think you're hearing or whatever. They make you question your own sense of reality. So it happens in many different forms and many different formats, but that's where it comes up. So number 1, for example, is "I never said that. I never said that." So literally, they will say things like, "We'll pay you back on the rent that I borrowed from you, on this money. I will borrow money from you, and then, I'll pay you back." Then you go to ask them for the money back, and they'll say, "I never said that. I never said that I was going to pay you back," or "I never said that I was going to pay you back in this way or on those terms," whatever. "I never said that." You're over there going, "You definitely did. You definitely said that you were going to pay me back. You definitely said you were going to pay me back this weekend. or you definitely said you were going to come this weekend. You know that a certain conversation took place, and they'll say, I never said that. You know that it happened in a certain way, and they'll completely just deny it. And they'll even accuse you of being the crazy one, that, that never took place in that way. And when these kinds of things happen a lot over time, then you really start to question your own mind, right? And it's used to control you, it's used to destabilize you. And when you go to negotiate, especially after you've been with this person for a really long time, and now you're trying to go through the dissolution of a marriage or a dissolution of a partnership or any kind of a negotiation, maybe it's your boss or, any kind of business situation, it's difficult because you're in this mental fog or cognitive dissonance. It's even a physical thing, it can cause autoimmune disorders and all kinds of issues. And you're really at a disadvantage sometimes because of that. So that's number one. I never said that. Number two is you're too sensitive. So, they might say something that's just really, really offensive, and they know that it's offensive. They'll just say you're too sensitive. So, maybe they'll say something about your weight, or maybe they'll say something about your brain or how you are with numbers or your driving or anything. And, when you take offense to it, they'll say you're too sensitive. And by the way, it's not the same on the other side, right? Because you know how narcissists are. They're so easily slighted at the wind blowing. I mean, you can say something, and they'll take offense at your tone, at your eyes, at nothing. I mean, they'll say, I can't speak to you because you have raised your voice. You interrupted me. They'll say you interrupted me when you didn't even interrupt, but they'll accuse you of being too sensitive even when you weren't sensitive, right? So that's number two. Number three is they'll say, it sounds like you don't really know what you want or what you need right now. They accuse you of these things because you do know what you want or you do know what you need, but they do these kinds of things or they say these kinds of things because they don't want to get into a conversation where you are asking for something or you are needing something. They don't want to have to address your wants. They don't want to have to address your needs. So they actually turn things around to make it so that they make it seem like you're crazy or you're delusional. It's a way of shifting the conversation away from having to address anything about you, because they most certainly do not want to have any kind of deep conversations or conversations where they're going to have to be on the hook for having to be there and be available for you. So that's why they'll say things like, you don't really know what you want. You don't really know what you need. They know that you know exactly what you want or what you need. They just don't want to have to provide it to you. Okay. So that's number three. Number four is they'll make a statement and then deny having made that statement. And if they'll do that in the middle of the same conversation. They'll say something and be having a fight with you, and in the middle of that same conversation, deny that they said something. It's extremely frustrating because you can say you literally just said something, and then they'll say, I didn't just say that. Or they'll accuse you of saying something that you didn't say. Oh, you just called me a loser. I never said that, and you can say, I never said that. And, oh, I just literally heard you say that. You get into these ridiculous conversations with them, but they say that, right? And they'll literally get into these conversations with you, or they'll deny proof of something, even if you have proof of its existence. Like you can say, you said this, and you can show them a text message that they said something, and they'll literally say, I didn't say that. I've had this conversation with courts, where I've had a narcissistic attorney on the other side, and I've had the transcript where they literally said something in court and they've said they didn't say it. It's absolutely insanity, but they will do that. So that's number 4. Number 5 is, don't be so dramatic. It doesn't mean anything. Don't be so dramatic. It doesn't mean anything. This is where you might see a text message that it looks definitely really suspicious, like miss you, or there's, hearts, and, something that definitely looks inappropriate or something like that. Or you might see photographs or something that looks inappropriate, or behavior that looks inappropriate, where they're, having a relationship with somebody else that they shouldn't be, anything like that. Don't be so dramatic. It doesn't mean anything. I don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. You're making too much of this. Things like that. So that's number 5. Number 6 is, you're just imagining things. Just go to sleep. We'll talk about it in the morning. They don't want to have a conversation right now, so they push it off because they think that if they push it off, you'll forget about it. It's a conversation that won't have to happen. So, just go to bed. You'll have a clear head later, and, just pat you on the head. You're being over dramatic. Just go to sleep, go to bed. We'll talk about it later, that kind of thing. So that's number 6. Go take a breath, go meditate, take a few days, that sort of thing. Like, you're just making too much of it. Go take some time, because you're just making so much of this that you probably just need to take some time. So that's number 6. And number 7, it's just a joke, or they'll just add ha to the end of something. They'll just say something that's just completely mean, absolutely awful. And then they'll just be like, oh, ha, I know somebody who was like, that was like their signature. They'll say there's something that was absolutely awful, and then just add ha to the end of it, which is so horrible. Like, they think that was like their get out of jail free card, right? Just adding ha to the end of things. Number 8 is, you're the problem, not me. So, they don't ever want to think that they're the ones that have the problem. Number 9 is, I don't like when you brought this up or how you brought this up. That is such a classic one. It's that project and deflect, kind of, diversion thing. It's just never a good time. Why did you bring that up now? Why do you bring that up now? And, or I don't like how you brought that up. Your tone was bad. You interrupted me. It's a bad time. It's a diversion thing to put it back on the other person, because then we don't have to actually talk about it. So that's the whole thing. You bring up these suspicious text messages or whatever. It's like, why are you bringing that up now? Or what? Now I don't like the way your tone is. Now you're interrupting me. Now it's too loud, or now it's too hot in the room, or whatever it is. It's all about you. Okay. That's number 9. Number 10 is, okay, let's just forget about all of this. And let's just think about our future. Let's just start over. We've got so many great things ahead of us. We can just think about how many wonderful things. Why are we being negative here? Let's just think about the positive future. It doesn't help us to dwell about the past. Okay? Let's just forget about all of this and start over. Okay? So that's number 10. Number 11 is I'm not angry. They will literally rip and tear into you. You're afraid for your life. And then you ask them, why are you so angry? And then they'll say, I'm not angry. And you're literally like shaking, and they'll say, I'm not angry. I mean, it's almost scary sometimes, so that's number 11. Number 12 is this is why no one likes you. This is one of those, to make you think it's all about you. You're the one that has the problem, no one else, to isolate you, to make you think you're the one who has the problem, not them. So this is why no one likes you. And this is one of the worst ones, because normally you also have your own core wounds. And so it really speaks to that, and it makes it so much worse. So this is why no one likes you. So that's number 12. Number 13 is, can't you take a joke? Can't you take a joke? Come on. Kind of comes back to that ha thing. So that's number 13. And number 14 is let's forget about all of this. That's that future faking thing again. And number 15 is you're reading way too much into this. It's again your fault. Number 16 is stop being so insecure. You're the one being so insecure. Number 17 is I'm sorry you feel that way. I could do a whole video on faux apologies, which I have done, which you can definitely check out my other videos on narcissists. So faux apologies. Do narcissists really apologize? I wonder. So you can check that out, those other videos on that. And number 18 is, well, excuse me for trying to be wonderful to you. There's a guilt apology. That's what I call those guilt apologies. This is all part of that manipulation ship that you're in. Remember, everything a narcissist does is a manipulation. Everything they do, even when they love bomb you, it's a manipulation. Okay. And number 19, I guess I'm just a horrible person. I guess I'm just horrible. This is when they try to flip things around on themselves. When you're asking for something, when you're trying to get them to feel anything about you, it's, I guess I'm just horrible. They turn it on themselves to be a victim. And then number 20, no one else loves you like I do. Again, trying to isolate you, trying to make you think that no one else loves you, only they do, right? Because they're afraid to be abandoned. Remember, narcissists are way more afraid of you than you are of them. Their biggest fear is that you're going to abandon them or expose them, which goes back to number 21. Number 21 is everyone else thinks and no one else thinks. So they have this whole thing, and I have a whole video on narcissist favorite catchphrases, which you can definitely check out, which they say these things all the time. Everyone else thinks this and no one else thinks that. Things that they say to isolate you, to make you think that you're the one who's crazy, not okay. And I want you to put this in the comments right now. It's not okay, these things that they're doing, because they're trying to make you think that you're the one that's crazy. You're not. It's not you, it's them, which is why I want to go into the 10 gaslighting techniques that narcissists use right now. Number one is invalidating your feelings. Invalidating your feelings so that you think that you're, not so sensitive. Don't be so sensitive, right? Invalidating your feelings. Number two, making you think that you had conversations that didn't take place. We talked about that and you agreed, don't you remember? You know you didn't have that conversation. If you know you didn't have that conversation, stand up, say, we didn't have that conversation. It's okay. You can say that. Number three, they take bits and pieces of conversations and then redesign them into new truths. So they fashion like parts of conversation and then say, oh, we talked about parts of that. And then they kind of make that into new truths, right? And that's not okay either. Number four is they isolate you by using those absolutes. Remember, everyone else and no one else. Not okay. Not okay. Remember, put that in the comments. Not okay. Number five, isolating you by making you think that you're not lovable. I'm the only one who truly loves you. Your family doesn't really love you. Your friends don't really. Therefore, no one else would ever love you either. That's not true. And that's why you really do need a support system. That's why you really do. And that's why you really do need phrases for disarming narcissists, which I have for you. You can get it disarmthenarc.com. Make sure you go to disarmthenarc.com, grab my free phrases for disarming narcissists, and you need a support system, by the way. So I have that too, which is Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. That's my free private Facebook group. Make sure you join that too. Okay. And I also have a sponsor on this channel, which is BetterHelp, which you can go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung and get the help and support that you need. We receive commissions when you sign up with them. It does not cost you any extra. We just want you to have access to the help and support that you need. So number six is making conversations and then making themselves out to be the victim of those conversations. Like, I guess I'm just horrible, reversing that conversation, right? When you're trying to get them to see your side or have any feelings about you at all. I'm just the terrible one, reversing that. That's not okay either. Number seven is interrupting conversations so that you can never get to the point of what it is that you're trying to say. Never the right time. It's too loud, etc. So that's number seven. And then number eight is never taking responsibility by, wanting to take to just move on, future fake you, move right to the new thing and just forgetting about the past. That also invalidates your feelings and doesn't give you a chance to heal and feel acknowledged and feel valued and show them that you matter, right? That's also a form of gaslighting, and that is not okay. So that's number eight. Number nine is making you think you're crazy by saying things like, I'm not angry, when they're clearly angry. You're imagining things. You're reading too much into things. That's also a form of making you think you're crazy. And it causes this cognitive dissonance and this brain fog. Okay, so that's number nine. And number 10 is taking a lot of the focus off of what's going on with what they did by making a lot of noise around your behavior, blowing things up around your behavior and accusing you of all kinds of things when you didn't do anything, but they make a lot of noise around what you're doing because they want to take the focus off of themselves.